There is a photo. It wasn't posted by a fan account, it wasn't shared by weavers, it wasn't part of any official content drop. It came from a single person who happened to be in the right place at the wrong time, or, depending on how you look at it, exactly the right time. And what they captured in that one unplanned frame is the reason this video exists. Because when you've spent years watching someone perform presence for a living, when you know every angle of their stage face, their press face, their camera face, the moment you see their actual face is something you feel before you can name it. That is what happened, and ARMY noticed immediately. This channel is for the people who pay attention to the things that happen slightly outside of frame, the moments that don't make the official recap, the details that are technically visible but practically invisible unless you already know what you're looking for. If that's you, the version of this story that everyone else is telling is not the one we're going to tell here. The last few minutes of this video in particular are going to reframe everything that came before it. The European leg of the Arirang World Tour is, by any measurable standard, the most ambitious stretch of concerts BTS has ever undertaken. 2 nights in Madrid, 2 nights in Brussels, 2 nights in London, 2 nights in Munich, 2 nights in Paris, before heading to New York for the FIFA World Cup final halftime show on July 19th. In between Madrid and Brussels, there were a few days. Not many, not enough by any reasonable human standard for 7 people who had just played to 66,000 people across 2 consecutive nights in Spain to fully recover before doing it again. But a few days. And in those few days, the members of BTS did what people who have been performing at maximum capacity for weeks do when they finally have an unstructured afternoon in a city that isn't home. They went outside. Brussels, for those who have never been, is the kind of city that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't have the operatic grandeur of Paris or the architectural aggression of London. It is quieter, older in a different way. The streets in the center, the cobblestone ones that wind around the Grand Place, feel like they've been absorbing the weight of centuries without making a fuss about it. It is, in short, a good city to disappear into. And that is what several BTS members appeared to do in the days between Madrid and Brussels. Jin was spotted first. The photos were shared on Weavers by a fan who had noticed him from across the street and who, importantly, chose to keep their distance and observe rather than approach. In the image, Jin looks entirely at ease. He's holding a waffle, a real Belgian waffle purchased from what appears to be a street vendor, wrapped in paper the way food tastes better when you eat it standing on a cobblestone street in Europe. The caption when the fan posted it was simple: "He looked so happy, I didn't want to interrupt." That post alone got tens of thousands of reactions, but it was not the post that started the conversation we're talking about today. The second set of images appeared a few hours later. Different account, different location in the city, and a different member, Jimin. Now, the way fans talk about Jimin's public appearances exists on a specific spectrum. On one end, the fully activated version, the one who walks into a Dior show and creates 550,000 posts in a few hours, the one who steps onto a stage and makes Jonathan Anderson stop mid-sentence. That version of Jimin is extraordinary, and also, in a very real sense, a version that requires enormous conscious energy to maintain. The person in the Brussels photos was not that version. He was wearing something simple, dark, the kind of outfit that reads as deliberate invisibility. Not invisible because Jimin is genuinely not capable of being invisible, but the kind of dress down that signals, I am trying to move through this city as a person, not as an event. His posture was different. His shoulders, which on stage tend to carry a very specific kind of controlled tension, the kind that comes from years of training the body to hold itself in precise ways, were lower, looser. He was looking at something across the street, not at anyone, just at something. The specific kind of unfocused attention that only happens when you are genuinely completely off the clock. ARMY noticed within minutes. Not because of where he was, not because of what he was doing, but because of how he looked doing it. The thread that circulated fastest wasn't even a particularly long thread. It was a side-by-side, On the left, a photo of Jimin at the Dior Men's Summer 2027 show in Paris 4 days earlier. On the right, the Brussels photo. Same person, different planet. The caption, "This is what rest looks like on someone who never rests." That thread got over 1 million impressions before anyone had even gotten to the second image, because there is something specifically striking about seeing a performer at rest, not sleeping, not absent, just present in a private way. The way that reminds you that the person you've been watching command stadiums and stop the world's most prestigious fashion directors mid-sentence is also always a person who walks down cobblestone streets and looks at things across the road and exists in the in-between moments that no camera was supposed to catch. And then the second image circulated. This is where it gets interesting. Because in the second image, captured from farther away by a different person at a slightly different angle, Jimin is not alone. There is someone beside him. The figure beside him is not identifiable from the image itself, the angle is too wide, the distance too significant, but several accounts who had been tracking member locations throughout the day began to cross-reference timestamps, locations, and background details, the specific lamppost, the corner of a building, the direction of shadows in late afternoon Brussels light, and the conclusion they arrived at, shared carefully and without overclaiming, was this. The figure beside Jimin has the build, the posture, and the specific way of moving through a crowd, weight slightly forward, hands in pockets, head at a particular angle, that is consistent with one other person, Suga. Now, before going further, this is the moment where a lot of content about BTS makes a hard right turn into territory that this video is deliberately not going to enter. The shipping lens, the romantic interpretation, the frame that turns every proximity between two members into something it may or may not be. That is not what makes this detail significant. What makes it significant is something much simpler and in some ways much more interesting. These are two people who, in the middle of the most intensive touring schedule of their careers, chose to spend one of their free afternoons walking through the same streets at the same time. That's it. And if you know the specific dynamic between Jimin and Suga, if you followed them long enough to understand how each of them relates to downtime, to privacy, to the rare moments when the cameras aren't pointed at them, that detail carries a weight that has nothing to do with shipping and everything to do with what it looks like when two people genuinely choose each other's company. Suga, by his own admission across multiple years of interviews and Weverse posts, is someone who values solitude in a way that is relatively rare even within BTS. He has described his ideal day off as one where he doesn't have to interact with anyone. He has talked about music production as the thing he reaches for when he needs to process, which is why his discography, as August D, reads the way it does, like someone who is most honest when the only person in the room is himself. He does not spend his free afternoons walking through foreign cities with people he doesn't specifically choose to be with. That's the context. That's what makes the detail of the second image land the way it does. The thread that compiled all of this, the location cross-referencing, the timestamp analysis, the side-by-side posture comparison, was not in itself particularly dramatic. It was methodical, patient, the kind of thread that ARMY does when they are trying to understand something rather than prove something. And the response to it was different from the usual viral moment response. There was no explosion of screaming, no flood of all-caps reactions. There was a specific kind of quiet. The comments were thoughtful, considered. People writing longer sentences than usual. People who have been following BTS for years, writing things like, "I've been trying to explain to people outside the fandom why this group is different, and I don't know how to say it better than this. They choose each other when no one is watching." That sentence was shared over 300,000 times. There is a specific moment from a 2022 interview conducted during the quieter period before BTS's hiatus, when each member was beginning to process what the next few years of military service and individual growth were going to mean, where Jimin was asked what he was most looking forward to about returning. He didn't talk about the stage. He didn't talk about the music. He paused for a long time and then said, in the way he says things that he has actually thought about, rather than things he's decided are appropriate to share, just being around everyone again. Like this, normal. The interviewer had asked a big question. He gave a small answer. And ARMY, who had stored that answer for 4 years, the way you store something you're not sure when you'll need but know you'll need eventually, brought it back this week, alongside the Brussels photos. There is something that happens on a long tour, and this is true not just for BTS, but for any group of people who have been in close proximity through something enormous, where the texture of relationships shifts, the history becomes more present, the things that don't need to be said accumulate in a way that changes how people move around each other. Jimin and Suga have 13 years of that accumulated weight. They have been in the same rooms for thousands of hours. They have watched each other be uncertain and grow and disappoint themselves and exceed what they thought was possible and come back from things that would have ended other people. Suga spent the Busan backstage hallway making Jimin laugh the night after Jimin had cried in front of a hometown stadium. Jimin said something that might have been thank you when he thought no one was watching. And now, in Brussels, between one stadium night and another, these two people chose to walk through a European city in the same direction at the same time. No cameras intended, no content planned, no schedule item that required them to be near each other. Just an afternoon, and a choice. The image itself is unremarkable by any objective standard. Two figures, one of whom may or may not be identifiable, walking on a Brussels street in late June. Background details, a lamppost, some stonework, the blurred suggestion of a cafe or shop across the road. But what fans were actually looking at when they looked at that image, what they were responding to when they said things like, "I can't explain why this got me," and "Why does this feel important?" was not the image itself. It was the context behind it. It was the knowledge that Jimin, who gives everything publicly, was choosing to give nothing publicly in that moment, that he was simply walking, and that beside him, in the frame, was the person who has spent 13 years understanding the specific language of what Jimin needs without being asked. The last detail, the one that almost nobody mentioned in the initial rounds of coverage because it required a specific kind of patience to find. In the first Brussels photo, the one of Jimin alone looking at something across the street, if you look at the reflection in the window of the building behind him, there is a figure, slightly out of focus, too blurred to identify with any certainty, but there, already there, before the second photo. Some fans chose not to post about this because the ambiguity felt more important than the claim. Others posted it quietly, without tagging anyone, without requesting a response. One post simply said, "He wasn't alone in the first photo either. He just hadn't turned around yet." That post was saved by over 500,000 people. There is a version of this story where we extract every implication, build the theory to the most dramatic possible conclusion, and leave you with something that feels enormous. We're not going to do that, because the actual story doesn't need to be made larger than it is. The actual story is this. Between Madrid and Brussels, during what little unstructured time existed in one of the most demanding touring schedules in music history, Jimin walked through a cobblestone city in the afternoon light. His shoulders were down. His face was private. He was looking at something across the road without any particular intention. And somewhere in the frame was the person who has known him for 13 years, not performing, not producing, not carrying the weight of a stadium full of people or a fashion house or a chart position or a legacy, just walking. That is what the fans saw. That is what they saved. That is what they kept coming back to, not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. And sometimes that is exactly enough. There is a question worth sitting with. Not for a quick answer, but for the kind of answer that takes a few days to arrive. What do you think it means that the moments ARMY responds to most deeply are almost never the big ones? Not the chart records, not the sold-out stadiums, not the Fashion Week appearances, but the afternoon walks, the backstage hallways, the reflections in windows. If you've been carrying your version of this question, the one about what it is that makes this particular group feel different from everything else, write it somewhere. Not necessarily here, just somewhere. Because the most important things fans have understood about BTS over the years didn't come from press releases. They came from paying attention to the small things. And you are clearly very good at that.